From hidden Easter eggs to hidden overpowered card mechanics, here are 24 Clash Royale facts that you maybe missed. And this musketeer told me it's impossible to subscribe to the channel with your nose. If you want to prove her wrong, go ahead and click that juicy button now. If you ended up cheating and using your finger, don't worry, I won't tell her. The Royal Giant is one of Clash Royale's most iconic cards, and in my opinion, it's one of the strongest win conditions in the game. But did you know that the Royal Giant evolution has a secret mechanic that makes it way more powerful? Not many people know that the evolved Royal Giant's cannonball actually does splash damage. This doesn't come into play in every single battle, since this most often makes a difference when some type of flying card is right above the building that the Royal Giant is shooting at, but when you can pull this off, it definitely gets the Royal Giant just that much extra value. Speaking of evolutions, when the Ice Spirit got an evo of its own, it actually used to take 3 cycles, meaning you'd have to place the Ice Spirit 3 times during the match, and only on the 4th time would the card actually be evolved. This made it nearly impossible to even play the evolution once during a match unless your deck was extremely cheap and you could forget about playing it multiple times in a match. For this reason, Supercell quickly stepped in and changed it to 2 cycles, which fixed the issue and made players happy again. Did you know that there are only 5 cards in the entire game that are able to take themselves out with just 1 shot? Before I tell you which 5 they are, pause the video and go ahead and comment your guesses down below to lock in your answer. Okay, now that you've made your guesses, the 5 cards are the Bats, Skeletons, Firecracker, Hunter, and Wall Breakers. I'll be impressed if anyone got them all right. We all know that Supercell's had their fair share of mishaps where they've unintentionally left something in the game or caused a bug that they later had to go and fix. But did you know that Supercell actually put the Skeleton Barrel into Clash Royale by accident before it was supposed to be released? Yeah, you heard that right. On October 17th of 2017, the card was available to play inside of the Mirror Challenge, even though the card wasn't actually supposed to come out for another week. Supercell did notice this fairly quickly, and they were able to fix it with an emergency maintenance break. Some of you might remember that when the Goblin Gang first came out, it actually used to only have 5 goblins in total. Nowadays, there are obviously 3 Spear Goblins and 3 Stab Goblins for a total of 6, but the card render in the game actually still only shows 5 goblins to this very day. Do you ever wonder who the voice actors are for different cards in the game? Well, to save money, Supercell actually has some of their voice actors do the voices for multiple cards in the game. For example, the Knight, Barbarian, Electro Wizard, and Lumberjack are all voiced by the same voice actor, John Mondelli. Don't believe me? Check it out.
Hey, my name is John Mondelli, and I'm one of the voice actors in the game Clash Royale.
Zap! Electrify! Timber! Chop, chop!
Speaking of the Barbarians, did you know that the Elite Barbs make the exact same sounds as the normal Barbarians, just slowed down? This one's a fun one to test out for yourself in-game. If you hit the Barbarians with a Snowball or Ice Wizard, they'll become slowed down and they'll actually make the exact same sounds as an Elite Barbarian. If you want to give this a try the other way around, go ahead and throw a Rage spell on your Elite Barbarians, which speeds up their sounds, causing them to match the sounds of the normal Barbarians. Any of you Clash of Clans players out there may have noticed the game has a few references to Clash Royale hidden around. For example, there's the Clash Royale scenery that shows an arena complete with rockets in the bottom right of the screen when you're using it. Did you know that one of the special decorations from a few years ago in Clash of Clans featured the head of a skeleton dragon? I personally don't have this obstacle, but let me know in the comments if any of you guys do. The Rascals card was originally supposed to be just a knight with 2 archers behind it, kind of like how the Goblin Gang is 2 different troops in one. But Supercell ended up making the Rascals instead, which have very similar stats to a knight and 2 archers. That way they could balance the knight and archers separately without affecting this card too. We all know there are 4 different spirits in the game: Fire, Ice, Electro, and Heal. But did you know that one of these spirit cards actually doesn't have a mouth? That's right, if you've ever looked closely at the card art for each spirit, the Fire Spirit is the only one that doesn't have a mouth. Speaking of spirits, this next fact applies to all 4 of them inside the game. Whenever a spirit jumps, it instantly becomes considered a projectile while it's in the air, and it's no longer considered a troop in the game's code. We can see proof of this by looking at the touchdown game mode, where we can see that if a spirit jumps into the end zone, it won't actually score a touchdown. And that's pretty much the only useful situation to know this fact in, but hey, it's a pretty cool fact to know either way. Like other swarm cards in the game, the minion horde is actually cheaper than just playing 2 sets of normal minions, since that would cost 6 elixir and the horde only actually costs 5. You may think that this means to always go with the swarm version since it's cheaper per troop, but you actually want to be careful, as the other side of that coin is that your opponent can get way more value from their spells like the arrows and fireball, so maybe try splitting up your minion horde next time you use it. The Dark Prince actually used to be a royal recruit. Yup, if you look at the description for the royal recruits, it says that they dream of ponies and one day wearing metal buckets. It's quite obvious that this is referring to the Dark Prince, since that's the only card in the game that actually fits that description, so we can safely assume that each royal recruit actually has the chance to get promoted one day into a Dark Prince. When you upgrade the Spear Goblins to Star level 3, you can see that they get a cool red mohawk. But did you know that this is actually a reference to Clash of Clans? That's right, when you upgrade your goblins to level 6 in Clash of Clans, they get the exact same mohawk as well. This next one's another that you observant players might have noticed before. If you look at the card render art for the minions, you'll see that their eyes are actually purple. Well, when you play play the minions in game, you can see that their eyes are actually flaming red. Not only that, but the wiki suggests that the minions' eyes actually used to be team colored, meaning blue if they were your own minions and red if they were your opponents. Whenever a knight goes down in Clash Royale, I'm sure you've noticed that he drops his sword, which sticks into the ground and stays there for some time. But did you know that there are actually a total of 10 different cards in the game that do this? Beyond just the knight, you can also see the Rascal Boy, Mega Minion, Dark Prince, Executioner, Mega Knight, Sparky, Fisherman, Golden Knight, and Little Prince all drop their weapons upon being defeated. This is purely a visual thing, as the weapons can't actually be picked up and used later, but hey, it's still cool to know nonetheless. Something really strange about the giants in Clash Royale is that while the Royal Giant appears to be wearing some chainmail armor, he actually has less hit points overall than the normal giant. This doesn't make a lot of sense for obvious reasons, but maybe the giant just has some superpowers we don't know about, or maybe he's even wearing a bulletproof vest underneath that shirt. This at least makes sense from a balancing point of view, since the Royal Giant is only 1 extra elixir and has a range attack, so he probably would be a little broken if he had the same health as the giant. The skeletons are one of the least often cards to appear in balance changes. This is because the skeletons appear in a whopping 6 different cards in the game, being the Skeletons, Witch, Graveyard, Skeleton Barrel, Tombstone, and Skeleton King. If Supercell ever did decide to throw Larry into the balance changes again, it would surely be a nightmare for the other cards involved, since they would all get changed too. Speaking of balance changes, do you know that there's only one permanent card in the entire game that has never been included in a balance change update? This card is the Electro Spirit. Supercell obviously did an amazing job choosing the stats and cost for this card, since it's been strong but never overpowered ever since it got released in game. The Traitor is a concept that exists in both Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, but did you know that he's actually the exact same character in both games? That's right, if you look at the Traitor in Clash of Clans on the top left side of your base, and then look at the Traitor in the Clan tab in Clash Royale, you'll see that he looks the exact same in both games. The Sparky and the Firecracker are the only 2 cards in the game that have recoil when using their main attack. This doesn't mean a lot for the Sparky since it's heavier and attacks much slower, but for the Firecracker, as I'm sure we're all painfully aware of at this point, it can very easily cause her to avoid your arrows or whatever other spell you're firing her way. When the skeletons were first released in game, some of you veterans out there might remember that the card actually used to spawn 4 skeletons. Nowadays it only spawns 3, but I'm sure you can imagine how powerful the card was with 4, since it's still very powerful today if used properly. I swear the skeletons could nearly fully counter a P.E.K.K.A. on their own back in the day. That extra skeleton really made a difference. If you've ever stopped to look a little bit closer at the archers in Clash Royale, you might have noticed that they have a quiver on their back. This makes sense since they need extra arrows to fire while they're alive in game. But did you know that the archers don't actually even reach back to grab the arrows from the quiver when firing? Yeah, the next arrow just magically appears in their hand after every shot. Again, maybe the archer just has some magical powers that are beyond our understanding or something. The bomber in Clash Royale was very likely inspired by the wall breakers from Clash of Clans. Funnily enough, the bomber then ended up getting added to Clash of Clans in the builder base update, and then Supercell added actual wall breakers to Clash Royale. This means that 2 troops were pretty much created out of nothing, but I don't think anyone's complaining. And with that, guys, YouTube thinks you might like this video, so go ahead and click on it to see if they're right, and have a great rest of your day.